training. We're in an era of digitalization. We're in an era of digitalization. We have a lot of digital products currently in the market. We have a lot of fintechs and all that really taking over and dominating the market. And as such, we need to not just, go on and start a business. We have to be compliant. There are regulatory bodies that guide how these things work and these things operate. So that's why we brought you this training. So let me do a brief introduction on our guest speaker today. Her name Rosemond Phil-Othihiwa. I hope I got the pronunciation correct. She's a corporate and commercial attorney, co-founder of Sealed App. It's an app, it's a legal app for legal secretary, corporate governance and compliance committee of the Nigerian Bar section of business law. She is the chairperson of the International Committee of the African Bar Association, Young Lawyers Forum Nigeria. She's the company secretary of Sadakar. That's also another tech app. I think we used to giving people things. She has worked in several law firms. She, has partnered with several organizations and hosted several webinars and trainings during her time at the Young Lawyers Forum. And she has come today to give us a lowdown to be compliant as tech startup, tech founder, tech owner, aspiring tech pro, whatever we call ourselves these days. So let me introduce you, Rosemond. So Rosemond, it's a pleasure having you here.
Thank you.
Yeah. So for those of us that are also joining us, we are SIAO. SIAO is the management advisory, tax, audit, legal compliance. We're a full-scale consulting firm, and we provide consulting services all this, including human resource consulting and operating such as this to help you learn and help you grow. So thank you for joining us again. So let me not waste much of your time. So Rosemond, you have the floor. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that very short, succinct introduction. I see that we have about 12 participants and 12 attendees. So very, very well. I'm pretty sure that we are very excited, looking forward to learning so much. I honestly, when I was invited to do this, I'm intentionally raising my voice because I know there's a tendency for network to be very, very crappy, right? First of all, standing on all protocols, thank you very much, Sarah, for having me here. I'm super excited. I feel like a fish in water talking about this because I'm not only, so one thing they usually say about lawyers is that all we do is advice. We don't put our necks deep. We don't understand, right, what entrepreneurs, tech bros or sisters go through. All we'll do is just penalize and all that. But I'm privileged not just to be a business lawyer, but I am also in the entrepreneurship space. I'm in the tech space as well. I'm building a company. I'm building an app. So it's like I'm practicing what I'm preaching, or I'm preaching what I am practicing and should be practicing. So for everyone that is here, if you have a friend, if you have a colleague, if you have somebody who needs this information, please let them know. The reason why I'm saying this is that there is knowledge everywhere, but the ability to have understanding is what sets you apart as a business person. Now, I have been privileged to speak to hundreds, and that's not even underestimating or overestimating at all. Hundreds of business owners, and I see a similar or a unique problem. And what's that? The fact that a lot of business owners feel that the business should make profit and all that, and that's all you need as a startup or as a business venture or as an SME, right? So I'm going to be here and I'm going to show you so many things that as a startup, especially as a tech startup, you can start taking advantage of right now. There are some things that you don't know right now that are going to cost you in future. There are some things you have not done now that if you don't, it can limit your chances for scaling. The essence of being a startup basically is to create a unique business model, get your unique service offering, be able to identify your target market and expand your service offering to a stage that you become more valuable, not just as a company, but in terms of productivity and profitability. Now, the challenge I see is that a lot of business owners think that legal shenanigans is, how would I put it, should come later. It's an unnecessary expense. And I have a passion and I have a mandate to make sure that such philosophies are not what it is. Somebody removed my system from being a co-host. I had to add because I want to share my screen. So I'm using my phone to speak. I'm using my laptop to share my screen. So please add me back if you can, or when I apply to be added back, please accept me to enter as a panelist. So I have two systems coming into the panel room. Thank you very much. All right, great. So let's go straight to it. So first of all, by a show of hands, and I think I should be able to set up a panel or a poll. If you are here and your business is between 0 to 3 years, can I see you raise an emoji? Can you write a comment and say yes, 0 to 3? If you are between 3 to 5, can you, okay, so if you are between 0 to 3, use an emoji. And if you are 3 to 5, just say yes. So let's see that in the comment section. I love to engage with my listeners a lot. So if you're a business startup, you're a startup here and you're between 0 to 3 years, or you are between 3 to 5, so reuse an emoji. I see Maximilian. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for that show of hand. Who else? Yes, I see Kende Bamidele. Yeah, I see you. I see Onishola Ashafa with the emoji 0 to 3, 0 to 3. I just want to know the kind of the stage of growth and stage of development that you are in, so that I can tailor my content towards actually, digging deep into what you need critically. 0 to 3, yes, 0 to 3. Joy Olamide says 0 to 3. Awesome, fantastic. I'm in the right place, I can say. Okay, sweet. I see Ceci. Yeah, Ceci. Good to have you. So Ceci is a very well celebrated legal practitioner. So I'm pretty sure you will have some comment after now. All right, great. So I'm going to share my screen in a bit, and trust me, it's going to be fun. What I have tried to do is to break down these concepts that I'm going to be sharing with you in such a way that a 3-year-old, right, would be able to understand, in such a way that a 3-year-old would be able to understand. So first of all, thank you very much, SIAO, for having me here. Today, we're going to be talking about legal compliance for tech startups. And first of all, I'm sure when, excuse me, I'll be drinking water so that my throat won't get rusty. Give me a minute. All right. So now I'm pretty sure when you registered for this webinar, you read the definition of a tech startup. So what is a tech startup, right? A lot of people think that startups are the same as SMEs. That's the first thing I want to tell you. You are not an SME if you are a startup. You are a startup if you are building, or you are a new entrant into the market who tries to use technologically driven products or a business model to be able to get customers who are able to buy into your business model, and then you can start scaling from there. So SMEs, usually there's a certain ratio, there's a certain milestone that they hit, especially in terms of revenue, that now make them being called startup. So SME. So being a startup is like the pre-stage. At this stage, you are trying to get your organization together. It's either you are building a team, you are building a product, you are doing a lot of consumer and data-driven research to be able to know who your target customers are, and you are trying to fine-tune or create a solution for them that they can be able to appreciate and use. And based on traction, based on growth, based on time, based on valuation, then you can now begin to scale, and of course you can become known as the unicorns that we all know today. All right. Okay, so like I said, I love to engage. So I want to ask, and honestly, I always get in a fight, not necessarily like a punch fight, but I get in a lot of business owners who tell you that this law thing. Oh yeah, I also see Monica in the room. You're welcome. Monica is also another amazing business lawyer. They tell you that legal services are lawyers are expensive, getting legal services is hard, it's tough, I really don't care, I just want to just make my money and all that. So I have a question to the house, right? Now, I want us to show by a show of hands. I want to see if I can be able to actually create a poll here, but if I can't, it's fine. Do you think, and this is the question, do you think legal services are extremely, now I am emphasizing the word extremely, is it an urgent need to you? Please be very honest. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to what I've said earlier in answering this question. Do you think that the need for legal services is a vitamin or a painkiller? So by vitamin means, if I don't take oranges, if I don't take vitamin C, if I don't take vitamin D, I'll not die. I'll be fine, right? Or is it a painkiller like, God, I'm having a serious headache. I need to take something now. So now, with your comment, I want to have some comments in the comment box. Do you think the need for legal services is a vitamin or is a painkiller? Let's have comments in the comment box. So vitamin, so you can say vitamin. If you say vitamin, write vitamin. If it's a painkiller, say painkiller. Is it extremely important? You can say yes, you can say no. So question 1, your answer will be yes or no. Question 2 would be vitamin or painkiller. So let's get the comments, guys. Let's get the comments going. I want to be sure that you are following me here. We have a lot of participants, so I'm waiting in the comment section. So what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? So like I said, do you actually think that getting legal services is extremely important? Okay, so Monica says A. I'm thinking that is it. Okay, Kenneth says painkiller. Yes, painkiller. So Monica, I think you mean yes for number 1, right? Okay. Let me see. More answers. We have nice people here because most of the conversations I have with people, they're like, I don't think so. Okay, yes, I'm seeing somebody that is being real. Yes, Maximilian says yes, it is extremely important. I get extremely important, yes. I see one person who says vitamin. Okay, yes, vitamin. Yeah, awesome. All right, great. Thanks for your comments, guys. I know we have a lot to cover, so I won't spend so much time on this. I was in a conversation with Mr. Victor Oyerike of Talemia, which is an incubator for early-stage startups, and we're having this conversation. And he said a lot of business owners do not really think that lawyers are extremely important to organizations. And I asked why. He said first of all, they come with very huge fees. If you want to just maybe, for example, get your trademark registered, they are very, very expensive. And he said, what's your answer to that? And I said something. I said, when one has propensities or the possibility of having cancer, what do they tell you before that cancer comes? Anybody, they'll tell you go for checkups. For example, a cancer of the breast, they'll tell you go to a mirror and do examinations, right? What are they telling you to do? Prevent, detect before the time. There are different kinds of cancer. There's the benign and there's the malignant. At the benign stage, you can fix it. Do chemotherapy, be on medications, eat well, change your lifestyle, do this, do that. And it's very, very possible that those cancerous cells will naturally deteriorate or die. But when it gets to the benign, there's really, really nothing you can do. That's what they'll tell you. You just have a couple of months to live. And that's how it is when you do not factor in proper legal steps in your business. What you're doing is that you are ignoring something that is benign now and can become malignant later. And that was my answer. Right? So if you have questions, please just put them in the question and answer section. I'll make sure I go through. Right? So what am I saying? Don't think that getting legal services is actually a need to have. It's a nice to have. It's not a nice to have. It's a must have. And I'll explain why. All right, let's move on. Let's move on to the very interesting part. I love when we have conversations like this. All right, so I was going through, I'm sure a lot of us here, we are tech startups, so a lot of us here know what Tech Cabal is. Tech Cabal is a leading tech information and technology platform that, of course, gives information across the continent of Africa and beyond. And these were some of the research reports that came out. In 2021 alone, different startups across Africa raised about $1.5 billion. That was how much was raised in just 2021. The foreign direct investment of Nigeria grew by 147%. Now, the truth is that because of the fact that solutions are required for business models and business strategies, you realize that a lot of Nigerians, a lot of Africans are really, really creative and coming up with so many amazing technological products, coming up with so many solutions, and they're attracting the attention of international investors, foreign partners, angel investors, venture capitalists, private equity institutions that, you know, invest in those companies. And so they raise a lot of money. So you can see that there is a huge growth in the kind of capital that is being imported into the continent of Africa by virtue of just having a technological company. Now, this is a challenge. Regardless of this growth, there are a lot of problems that hampers our progress. One of it is the fact that there is no internal structure and system that connects consumer markets, product, and data processes. You have tech talents who come into systems and organizations that are not properly structured, and then later you begin to hear on the news that so valued unicorn has gotten into so issue. I'm pretty sure you know what I'm talking about. I don't have to mention names. You have challenges between founders, investors. You have companies crashing left and right. You have so many issues, right? And the reason is because there are some aspects of our businesses that we are not paying key attention to. One of it is the structure behind your organization, your productivity channel, and the ability for you to manage your tech talents, manage the relationship with your founders, your investors, being able to understand the regulations of the industry you are building for, understand the customers that you are supplying services to, and being able to manage your internal organizations and processes. So like I said, there's a lot to go about it, right? So what's the next thing? Now, this is a dashboard that shows the amount of funding that was raised. So VC funding grew up by 150%, 1.5 billion, and of course, compared to Q1, which was 2021, which was about $730 million. So you can see that it's growing. And honestly, as much as many people say that the tech thing is a bubble, I actually think that it's here to stay and it will keep growing. But the companies that will survive in this next decade are companies that know what they are doing and have solid support systems to support what they're doing. So as you can see, you have companies that had a mix of debt and equity. So of course, I'm pretty sure you understand that as a co-founder or as a founder of the business, maybe you have taken some loans or you have angel investors who have given you some money in exchange for funding, right? So as you can see, according to the Africa report, about 100 unique startups received funding. And I can tell you some couple of millions of dollars, right? About 14 countries, of which you have Kenya, Nigeria, Egypt, Tanzania, and of course, some of those countries which I will basically say, all right? So let's dig into the major part. Like I said, please take advantage of the Q&A section and just feel free to drop your comments, drop your drop issues, or drop whatever it is that you want, right? So I've been told that I have an hour. I will try to go not too much, right? I will try. I'm not promising, but I will try to limit that because there's so much to talk about. Now we're going to be talking about preliminary considerations when incorporating your company. I'm not going to talk too much about that because I believe a lot of us here are already like into your company. Then we're going to be talking about incorporation checklists. So your business structure, your funding options. We're going to talk about regulatory considerations. What are some laws that govern your particular industry? What are the things that you need to start paying attention to? What are the questions to start asking right now, right? Especially if you're going to get your company or you're going to get your business investor ready. At the end of the day, a lot of people begin startups with the concept of, oh, I want to build a business that can earn me passive income. I'm sorry to disappoint you, sir. if you are going to lead or create anything, you are most likely going to be a part of the process for the longest of times until the point where the system is built enough and can survive without you. And that's the concept of actually being a business owner, isn't it? Then we're going to talk about the Nigerian Startup Bill. It's one of the most recent propositions or laws or regulations that has now been presented before the National Assembly for assent. So if this scales through the end and gets a presidential assent for an approval using layman terms, we're going to have a new Startup Act. So there is a law that will now be made that will govern the way startups in Nigeria will be governed. And we're going to do a little deep dive on that. And then, of course, I will go to my conclusions and recommendations. So who's ready to dig in? So let me get some comments. I'm ready. Let's see some comments. Shoot up some comments in the comment box. Are you ready? 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 So I see a lot of hands raised. I may not be able to point to you. So just use the comment box, the question and answer section. Yeah. Ready, ready, ready. Let me get like 6 or maybe 7 readies, then I move to the next slide. Yeah. I see that we are 40 now. Fantastic. Awesome. All right. Great. I see more comments. You're ready. So I'm sure you have been following me so far. Preliminary considerations, right? What are the things that we need to start paying attention to as business owners? What business structure works best? Like I said, it's not all business structures that work best for different business ideas. So there are different ideas of company growth. You have the ideation stage. So at the ideation stage, you are thinking you have a solution, you have maybe done some market research, you've spoken to your customers, you've spoken to your end users, you understand your market, and you say, okay, I have this idea. This is what I want to do with it. You are ideation, right? At incubation, you're now taking that report and that research, and you're trying to build something that can sustain. You get to your MVP stage. I'm sure we know what your MVP stage is, your minimum viable product. It could be an app, it could be a website, it could be a service, it could be something, but it's something that can start serving the needs of the customers that you are designing that solution for, right? And then, of course, you have your growth stage, your funding stages, and all that. So what business structure basically works with your team and model? How can your business be protected? Those are some of the preliminary considerations that we'll be talking about, and we are going to dig right in. Okay, right. So what are the things to consider legally? Now, when I say legally, you should know what I mean, right? What are the things to consider legally? It's very, very important. The first thing that you need to consider, of course, is your form of business organization. And to me, this is the minimum standard. And sorry, I can be very dramatic. This is like the least, the bottom part of your building a business, which is, of course, registering, being legally recognized as an entity, right? Like I'm not talking to people, I'm not talking to just roadside businesses. I'm talking to people who are seeking to become unicorns. So you are meant to start thinking and start building with the end in mind. So the first consideration you should have is, what form of business organization am I going to run? I would say there are so many ways. Of course, we all have heard about the New Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020. And you know that under that law, there are different forms of business organizations. You have the business name, which is like a sole proprietorship. Very quickly, a business name is the same thing as you. For example, Rosamond's Practice or Rosamond's company, not company, let me use the word company. Rosamond's Shoes, that's a business name. It's not a limited liability company. It will not have the word LTD behind it. It's sole, it's just me. When the government sees Rosamond and the company as one person, so if they're going to pursue my business, they will be pursuing my assets. They'll be pursuing I will be the one that will be personally liable, right? But if I register as a limited liability company, I have a board of directors. I have shareholders. The business is structured in such a way that there is a disparity, there is a distinguishing difference between Rosamond and Rosamond's, let's say, Water Limited, right? So usually the recommended way or the recommended way to start your business is to incorporate a limited liability company for many reasons. I will list two so that I can move forward fast. First of all, you have a distinguishing juristic personality. What that simply means is that the company is like its own person. It can buy property, it can own land, it can enter into contracts. So the shareholder, who is you or any other person you add as a co-shareholder in the company, you are like the engine of the company. The company is the car. The shareholders, the board of directors are the steering and the engine. As a director, as a co-founder, as a founder, you're like the engine room, you're the think tank of the company. The company is its own identity. The board of directors are like the steering wheel, the decision makers of your company, right? So it's usually preferred that you incorporate a limited liability structure, and for good reason too, right? So there are other forms of business organizations, your limited liability partnerships and your limited partnerships. Now, it's also meant to be profit-making, but the difference now is that now you are more or less having equal liabilities as other parties in the partnership. So usually you have law firms operate that kind of structure, accounting firms operate that kind of structure, especially when they have to do a lot of consulting or maybe service-based businesses, but it depends on the structure. But usually the most recommended is limited liability companies. Other things to consider. I have this idea, oh, this idea is amazing, it's gonna give me $1 million. Sir, ma, ideas have value. Ideas have value. How are you going to protect your idea? Especially when you start having conversations, you must think about it. Do I have a non-disclosure agreement, which simply means protecting your idea from either being stolen, replicated, or mismanaged, or misconstrued? So usually you would have a disclosure or a non-disclosure agreement that you would share. For example, if you are going to be maybe making a business presentation to somebody who just says, oh, come and tell me about your idea. Hope you know that there's something called idea theft. And that is why I'm so glad I have some amazing lawyers on this call who are intellectual property gurus, and they can understand what I'm trying to say. Sometimes that idea that you have that you are sharing so excitedly, the truth is that you are going to have to protect that idea. So you have to start thinking, I need to have a non-disclosure and a confidentiality agreement set up so that I can protect these ideas that I will be sharing. Now, another question is, am I going to be running this institution by myself? Am I going to have a co-founder? What's going to be the rights, the duties, and the liabilities of myself and my co-founder? What's going to be the sharing ratio of the company I will incorporate? For example, I would have really loved to go into details, but I will just scan through. Under the New Companies and Allied Matters Act, when you are incorporating your company, regardless the amount of share capital, by share capital, I mean the valuation. So if you are registering a company that is 1 million naira share capital, which is like the most common, how are you sharing it in terms of the valuation? Are you taking 60%? Is your co-founder taking 40%? Those are the questions you should start asking. And all those things should be written down in the co-founders agreement. If you're going to have business practitioners who want to come in and be shareholders, but you don't want them to be directors, you can have a separate shareholders agreement for them. What are you thinking? As you are building your business, as you are building your relationships, you start thinking, who are the kind of persons that should sit on my board? Who are the kind of mentors that I know that can offer strategic consideration and advice? I need to begin to warm up to them and begin to prospectively discuss with them about being on my board. Those are the conversations you should have, right? Another consideration you should have, okay, so I'm starting out, right? Some of us here, we are running businesses that are maybe 1 or 2 years, so you have a couple of employees. Do you have employee agreements with them? Do you have consultation agreements? For example, there are some people that you don't employ, but you outsource. So maybe they help you with something, you are not paying them a salary, you pay them in tranches. Do you have consultant agreements with them? For example, we are in tech, so you're going to have software developers. For some of us, you have internal software engineers. Do you have a software development agreement with them? Is that agreement composite in such a way that you are able to measure key performance metrics for them per month, per week, per year? is not just go to Google and download templates. What's the unique industry you are in? And those agreements must reflect the standards of your industry. The sweetest part is your intellectual property rights. A lot of people don't even think of this question. Who gets to own that app? Sir, ma, you have built an app. Who is the owner? What documents do you have now that proves the ownership of that product? Have you trademarked your logo that you are flaunting on Twitter, on Instagram? Do you have your certificate that proves that, yes, this logo belongs to you and you alone? If you're an ebook, you make ebooks. Have you copyrighted them? I'll give a typical example. When our company Sealed-Up was about to be incorporated, one of the basic questions I had to ask my founder at the time was, who gets to own this app? And there was something he mentioned that it was going to be him. And I said, look, changes may occur in the future. One of the advice that I gave, I thought about it, I said, why can't the company itself own it? So that regardless the shareholders or the directors who can come and go, the company remains the owner, because don't forget, the company has its own identity. Those are the kind of questions you should have. Another thing is, what are the laws that regulate my industry? What are the permits I need? What are the data protection laws that I have to obey? Don't forget, you cannot be a tech startup and not process data. I'm pretty sure Mordecai will bear me witness. You cannot be in tech industry and not want to collect. You collect names. You collect address. Sometimes you collect phone number. You collect familial information. Sometimes, especially when companies that offer legal services or very specific services, you're going to collect ID cards. You are going to ask for their national identity number. You're going to do verification. Sometimes, if you're a fintech platform here, you're going to ask for their BVN. What data protection laws do you have on your website, on your app, that specifically distinguishes and explains the rights and the responsibilities you have as a data processor? Or do you have a data compliance officer? Because the law, the Nigerian Data Protection Bill that was enacted, that is now law, and the regulations right now require that you have such officers appointed in your organization, and you must explain clearly in your terms and conditions how the data of these people that you are collecting will be regulated. It must be in your documents. Let's not even talk about permits, right? NOPTA, the National Organization for Transfer and Acquisition of Technology. You cannot be a tech startup and you don't know what NOPTA is. You are joking. You are really joking. You don't. Do you even know? Let's not go to NOPTA. That one is even like a long thing. Of course. Do you have your tax identification certificate? Are you registered with FIRS? Do you understand that you need to have your corporate bank account? Those are very, very pedestrian stuff. I'm sure we have that. That's why I'm not even talking about that right now. Right? Do you have agreements? Because the NITDA, which is, of course, one of the institutions that oversee data, that oversee your tech company's processes, you have to register some agreements with them. I'll go into it in further detail. Don't worry. I hope I'm not losing you. I'm not losing you guys. Fundraising. What's your plan to raise funds? What documentations do you have on ground? For a lot of us, we go into accelerators and incubators. Of course, you know, if you're going to get funding from an accelerator, you will sign an agreement. I will give a typical example. Y Combinator. Y Combinator is one of the biggest venture capital firms in the world. And they have been major funders of the big unicorns of today, the Flutterwaves and the Paystacks of this world, now Stripe. They will give you agreements to sign. What, as a company, have you sat down with your team and discussed what business entry and exit options are available for your startups? How do investors come in? Are you going to be raising funds by equity, or are you going to be raising funds with debt? Because depending on the kind of fundraising you are doing, that is what will determine the kinds of agreements that you will be writing. So for example, if you're going to be raising funds with equity, and maybe you are past your pre-seed stage and you are doing your seed fund round, your seed fundraising, right? Are you going to be using a safe agreement, or are you going to be using a convertible note? A safe agreement simply means simple agreement for future equity. The reason why a lot of companies, especially Y Combinator, will give you an agreement called a safe agreement to sign is because they understand that at this stage of investing in your company, you are not yet worth anything. So a safe agreement basically converts the equity that they collect from your company and convert it to revenue in the future, depending on the valuation of your company in the future. All these clauses must be clear to you, a founder or a co-founder, a shareholder, or a director. So these are the you need to think about even before you now say I want to start. So if you're here, you've already started, please screenshot this thing and write a checklist. Have a board meeting, have a team meeting, and say, guys, I attended a webinar and this is what we have to check. Check one, what form of business organization are we running? Check two, do we have these agreements in store? Check three, do we have a contract consultation agreement? What do those agreements say? Check four, what are our intellectual property rights? Have we protected them? Check five, what laws regulate my industry? Check six, how do investors come in? How do investors go out? When you have a good idea of these things, you can have confidence now to start making some very bold moves, right? Now, honestly, to be very honest, this is just the beginning. So let's think of some incorporation considerations. I'm just going to drop tidbits here and there, but I'm going to first talk about your share capital requirements. I'm going to give an allusion to some of the current sections of the Company and Allied Matters Act. I'm going to also give you some specific things you need to know. Now, if I was talking to a typical business owner or maybe not a tech company that is going to be highly valued in future, this is what I'll tell them. I'll say one of the things that the Company and Allied Matters Act has done for you is that it has given you a threshold of what is considered a small company. So for example, if your gross annual revenue, listen to this. If your gross annual revenue in a financial period is less than 120 million, listen to this, you are a small company. I'll explain why this distinction is important. If your gross annual revenue within a financial period is less than 120 million, you are a small company. If your entire asset is not up to 60 million, you are a small company. If you do not have foreign shareholders in your company, you are a small company. If the directors or the shareholders in your company have more than 51% ownership in your company, you are deemed to be a small company. What does that mean? Many tech companies have foreigners as their shareholders because you're going to be giving out equity. So do you know what that has done? That has removed you from the threshold, right? Many tech companies have very high valuations and earn a lot of revenue in a very short period. So even though the Company and Allied Matters Act has said, if your revenue is not more than 120 million, trust me, if you know what you're doing as a company, you can easily break that. The Finance Act gives a different threshold. If within a financial year, your earnings or your revenue is 25 million and below, you are a small company. And you have a lot of benefits if you're a small company. One of the benefits of being a small company with a revenue of less than 25 million in a financial period is the fact that one of the critical things is that you do not have to remit value-added tax, but you must file. You must file your papers. I'll go in further into that. So let's look at our screen here. You must understand, if you're a fintech here, your share capital requirements from CBN, from SEC, you can check. I can show you your website. It's currently 2 billion naira. It doesn't mean that you carry 2 billion and go and put it somewhere. No. What that simply means is that this authorized share capital must be uppaid. There's a certain statutory amount that is meant to be paid to CAC. You are meant to obtain licenses from from CBN and from other regulators, right? It is very, very important that you know this, so that when you say, oh, we want to open a fintech, you can understand. Now, a lot of people go and open fintechs in different ways. Some people piggyback on already established microfinance banks. So, for example, of course, you know the Kudas of this world and the rest. Even PiggyVest that we all know. PiggyVest had to obtain a microfinance bank license from CBN before they could start operating. So these are some of the key considerations that you actually have to understand. Very, very critical that you must understand them, right? If you're going to be a PTSP, of course, payment processors, payment transaction and support processors, processing companies, these are your shareholders. So the Companies and Allied Matters Act have very specific shareholding capital for different technological-based companies. And it's important that you know this, because if you're going to be a big player, it's very, very critical that you should, right? Very, very important. Now, let's go and let me soft pedal a bit. No, what am I trying to say? Understand the kind of company you want to incorporate. Find out what the share capital requirements are. Under the Company and Allied, Thank you very much. Under the Company and Allied Matters Act, you are required, so I'm glad that during this conversation, a lot of us said that you are incorporated 0 to 3, 0 to 5, well done, ma, well done, sir. My question to you is, do you file annual returns? And I'm explaining this because one of the things that the Corporate Affairs Commission will do or have been doing or will do is that if you do not file your annual returns yearly, you will wake up one morning and realize that your status as a company has been deactivated. So you are not recognized as a company as far as the government is concerned. So let me break that down. If you registered your startup in 2020, if you registered it as a limited liability company, you have 18 months after you incorporate business to go and play, enjoy yourself, make your money, don't give a damn about anybody. But once you clock that 18 months, every single year after, you must file your annual returns. Annual returns statutorily is like, it's not expensive, like 5K or more. If you are defaulting for every year, you have penalties that you will pay. So imagine a startup that was incorporated as far back as, let's say, 2010, and you never paid annual returns. Guess what? You have been keeping penalties for yourself, and you just suddenly wake up because I think it's section 682 of the Company and Allied Matters Act that gives the commission the authority to deactivate accounts if you have not been filing returns for 10 years. What does it mean to file annual returns? Filing annual returns is just like saying, I'm still alive, oh, my business is still operational, we are going concern, oh, simple. It's just to remind CAC that we are not dead, right? Now, I'm going to also talk about some considerations that you should have as a business idea as well, as a business or as a startup. Section 265 of the Company and Allied Matters Act restricts companies from appointing a director to hold the office of chairman and CEO at the same time. So let me explain. You cannot be the chairman of your board and be the CEO of your company as well. So when you are giving your LinkedIn profile, CEO, co-founder of, the Company and Allied Matters Act restricts you from also becoming a holding office as the chairperson of your board of directors because of good corporate governance. So what am I saying in that point? You must be able to establish a system of accountability around your company. Very, very, very important. Okay, so I see Kende's question. I'm a small company. The net asset is more than 60 million, but my annual turnover is not up to 120 million. Yes, on that comma, you basically have gotten out of that, because your asset is more than 60, you are not under that restriction again. So it will still depend on other factors, right? So I'll answer that in detail in the next slide because I actually answered that. Now, see the next commission. It says, where there's foreign shareholding held by venture capitalists, angel investors, a minimum share capital of 10 million naira is required. So that means that if you have foreign investors in your company, foreign shareholders, you cannot be classified as a small company, guys. Like you're 10 bros. Like just accept the title with your chest. You're a large company. You're large. All right. So these are some of the incorporation regulations or some of the considerations that you should have. I think the new company that Life Matters has even slightly adjusted this, but I will confirm this. Yes, now Ken, they're on a more serious note. Now you guys are tech bros. You should not be calling yourself small company. The essence is to scale. Amen. Amen. All right. So also, you have to, of course, I've said this countless times. You're meant to register with SIAO'S because you always pay company income tax. Now, another beautiful thing about being a small company is that for companies that still have annual turnover that is less than 25 million, you're a small company, so you don't have to pay companies income tax. If your earnings is between 25 million, listen, if your earnings is between 25 million and I think 100, between 25 and 100, you're a medium-sized company. So you will pay 20% of your profit. Don't forget, I'm pretty sure we are all smart here, like I'm talking to bros. Like taxes are paid from profits, not from revenue. I'm pretty sure we know that, like that's a no-brainer, right? So you pay 20% if your earnings is between 25 million and 100 million. You pay 30% if your earnings is above 100 million. Is that clear? Good. Then, of course, it is a penalty. It is an offense not to apply to have a value-added tax account. So within 6 months incorporation, you must apply to FIRS. I wish to be registered as a vatable person. If you do not do that, if you come back 3 years after and say, I don't have TIN number, I don't have value-added tax, you'll be penalized, and the penalty is 50,000. Yeah, late registration penalty. That's what FIRS calls it. So it's important that you register immediately. You register for your VAT immediately you are registered. Also, I also talked about your safe agreement, simple agreements for future equity. I've explained that earlier. Your convertible notes. Your convertible notes basically is a form of fundraising that uses debt. Right? I will explain that in future. I say in future, in subsequent slides. Then board resolutions, very important. Before you just wake up one day and bring in a shareholder, before you remove a director, before you do any change at all, you must have a board resolution drafted that allows you to make such decisions. That is why you need lawyers, because we are here to basically guide you. We eat agreements like this for breakfast. So you shouldn't be stressing when you can get services. That's why I asked my first question earlier. Then also your funding model, you must decide. A lot of people say that I would rather not use debt. I think it depends on your industry. I'm not giving financial advice, but depending on your stage of traction, if you've been able to positively ascertain your customer database, your user metrics, you're able to build a business model that works, you are scaling and all that, trust me, VCs will be interested in you. Incubators, accelerators will be interested in you. So you can actually use equity to raise some kind of funding. But like I tell you, not all money is money. You must understand the kind of investor that is coming into your company. It's not everybody that throws millions of dollars at you, you just collect, hey, thank God you have invested in my company. Because you must understand the kind of investor. How is the investor coming into your company? Are they coming in as managers? Or they just want to give you the money, do whatever you like, at the end of the period, this is how much I want. You must decide the kind of investor. That is why when an investor gives you an agreement to sign, don't just run to church and give testimony. I raised so money in funding and sign. Look at the document. Review the document. Give a business lawyer to review that document so that you cannot be shot in the foot. I will share a personal story. So my startup, we got a couple of venture capital firms that wanted to come in, and we had discussions back and forth, and they sent the agreements. You know, it's in those kind of times that you'll be happy that you're a lawyer, like, because you know what you're doing. I looked at some clauses. I literally put my hand on my chest like this, because I'm like, for how much equity are you asked? Like, literally, like, you want me to give you my liver, just take it. because the kinds of things that they were requiring were things that were not proper. And I had to say no. I've had several conversations like that. So you must understand the kind of investors coming in. Also, your founder's agreement, your employee contract, please let it be spelled out. I was Monica is on this recording. I was listening to his status. I said this, I was watching his status, and he was saying it is not every agreement that people write that they must put arbitration inside. Sometimes negotiate. You must understand some certain clauses in your agreement. What is the dispute resolution strategy that you have in your employees? When your employees are angry, what does your contract say that they go? Do they go to court? Do you guys start with negotiation, mediation? If it is not possible to agree over a mediation session, what's the next stage? Do you go to the Lagos Court of Arbitration? Do you go to the Lagos State Multi-Door Courthouse, which is like the easiest way to actually do a tri-party arrangement negotiation rather than going to court? If you want to go to court, some lawyers will still make money, Shabbat. But some people will go ahead and put arbitration and conciliation. Now, the truth is that sometimes you can't help it. And I tell you, it depends on your industry. So I'm not saying that arbitration is a bad thing, but imagine in Nigeria, somebody just goes to Google, goes and download, God, I beg, goes to download a founder's agreement or shareholders agreement. You don't look at it, it's nice, remove address, put address, remove name, put name, and then when you sign, all of a sudden there's a dispute. Then you read the document, and the document says arbitration shall be held in the let me mention the International Court of Arbitration of Wales and Scotland. Hello, sir. How, sir, do you want to enforce that agreement now? Because you went to Google, you did not review it, right? So this is something that is very, very important for you to do as businesses, because you must be able to understand these things. Sometimes your agreement with your business owners, your venture capital firms, your angel investors and all that, they will tell you that they want arbitration. Those are some of the things you should negotiate. Let me move on, right? I'm having so much fun talking about this part. Your non-disclosure agreement, please, before your software developer starts working on your app, on your idea, let him sign an NDA. It can be a 2-pager. Let him sign a non-confidentiality. Let him sign an intellectual property transfer agreement. Do you know what that means? It means that whatever he builds, whatever he develops, now belongs to you. It is super important. In fact, whenever I work with startups, those are the agreements you send to them. I sent this link to a couple of my team members, and I'm pretty sure they're on this call. They will tell you they have to sign their NDAs, the assignment agreement. So you assign the intellectual property rights to the entity, so that it is not the person that developed it that will now be claiming ownership after some time. Then also very, very important, because there are different ways to bring in staff. There are some people who you call your CTOs, your CFOs. You think that these people have very, very good industry knowledge and they're experts in what they are doing. You can't pay them. You can't pay them because they will ask 2 million from you per month, and they will be rightly so. They will be right to do that. So you can do a share vesting agreement, meaning you give them some equity in exchange for work done. And you said keep performing indices that will track that growth, so that when they hit those indices, those equities invest on them. There are agreements like that. There are so many ways, right, to add value to your company. Let's move to the next. Okay, I'm just like halfway through my slides. Okay, so let's move to the very interesting part, which is regulatory considerations. So far, so good. Let me know if you get what I'm saying. Tell me if I can proceed. Say yes, you can, yes, you can, yes, you can. I see the room even more fuller. I appreciate the audience. I see a lot of people have not left yet. So that means that I'm making a little sense, right? I'm actually very, 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 very happy that you are actually listening to this, because it will really, really help you solve a lot of issues. So let me get comments. Yes, yes, please. Can I move on? Can I move on? I've only gotten 1. I need 5. I want to show that everybody here is participating, and I'm not just saying a lot of things. Yes, yes, okay, yes. All right, all right. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. Anu says yes. Udairo says yes. Sweet, 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 sweet. All right. Yes. All right. Thank you very much. So regulatory considerations. One of the things, as I was going through the Tech Cabal report, one of the things that I basically saw, and one of the things I realized is that regulations are not there to stifle your business. I think it's a problem of perspective. We've been taught to think that the regulations, of course, I also agree that sometimes this ecosystem is over-regulated. So you have clash of laws, this law, that law, I understand. But the essence is so that you can have a controlled environment. You can boost trust with your customers. You do not provide unethical services or products. You don't provide substandard services. And of course, you maintain a healthy relationship with key stakeholders, which I think is very, very important. You can't build a company in a vacuum. So the essence of these regulators almost looking like winches, not to use the word, pardon my French, yes, is not necessarily because they're trying to stifle growth. But let me give a typical example. I'm sure many of us remember what happened to Soko loans. You go, people get loans, loan sharks. I'm pretty sure there is nobody on this call that has not received a message, whether it's on WhatsApp or text message. So and so Percy borrowed the sum of so and so this thing. This is to inform you that he's a criminal and is now at large. How? Like, how? So you have companies that sell data. I hope you know that there's something like people buy data. Funny question. How do you think, I'm pretty sure a lot of us here, how do you think that you'll be talking about something and then you later go and see it on Instagram or Facebook? Your data is sold. So you have a responsibility to your customers to protect them. Not just the services you offer, but the way you offer those services and the platform on which you offer those services. Right? So that's why the regulatory considerations are super important, right? So let's dig deep into a couple because there are lots. I just did my best to summarize, like I said, like for the deep training, which I know SIAO will be organizing later. We'll definitely dig deep. This is like scratching the surface here, but I'm sure we are learning a lot. Now, there are so many licenses that you need, especially if you're going to go, of course, fintechs are like the rave of things right now. So it is very, very important that you have your regulatory permits. The CBN requires you to obtain licenses from them for fintechs. Your NCC, that's the Nigerian Corporate Commission. Then NOPTA, very, very important for you to actually, get licenses from these organizations. The reason, and I will explain later. One of these, the NOPTA simply means National Office for Technology Acquisition and Promotion. So there are some of us here that by virtue of the kind of business you are running, it will be required for you, some of your investors, some of your business angel investors might require that you register in a foreign jurisdiction. So for example, you have a lot of Nigerian companies that are going to register in Delaware. Right? And they are Delaware companies, they register in California, they register in jurisdiction. And the reason they do that is so that there can be some more added advantage of trust. So there are requirements to do that. All right, it's very, very critical that you understand that. Now, the truth is that there's sometimes that as a startup or as a tech startup, you will agree with a foreign investor for the transfer of technology or the use of that investor's intellectual property rights, right? NOPTA is tasked with the responsibility of ensuring that all the contracts that you enter and the agreements that you enter for the transfer of these technologies is registered with the organization. So you have to register those agreements. And the truth is that if you don't register those agreements, there are so many penalties due to the fact that your investors may not be able to repatriate their capital. So if they invest and your company makes money and you've not gone to NOPTA to register all these agreements and all these things that will require from you, you will not be issued things like your capital importation certificates. So if they cannot repatriate profit, I'll go further into that so that it doesn't sound too technical, yeah? So it is very, very important. Section 6 sub 2 of that act specifically provide that you must go through this process before they can issue you a certificate of capital importation. So think about that for a minute, right? The certificate of capital importation is handled by an act which is called the Foreign Exchange Monitoring and Miscellaneous Provisions Act. So you have to ensure that you go and you require and you get all these things done. Then, of course, your regulations and protection of intellectual property and your copyright and the trademark registry, right? There's a registry and everything now is being done online. You can actually apply, you can create your account on the trademark website. You can apply for a search, apply for an approval. There are about 3 stages to it. So there's a search stage, then there's a search where you are able to get there's a document that will be issued to you. I want to see if I can show you how the one for my company looks like, so that I can share my screen with you. When you go to a stage, they will offer you an acceptance, basically stating that yes, it's qualified for the registration. Then of course, it will be published in a gazette, and then when the gazette is out, you can now apply for your certificate. So there are different stages to it. But most times people like to stop at the mid stage, which I don't advise. But the trademark registry takes a lot following up with trademark agents. And okay. Then also, very, very critical information is that taxes and exemptions, very important. Understand that if you're a tech startup and you have employees, your employees have to pay their own employees tax. They're subject to personal income tax, even the foreign expatriates that are working for you. So those things must be handled properly. Very, very important. I've spoken about NOPTAP already. Your agreement must be registered, like I've said. Then, of course, the very, very important one is the National Information Technology Development Agency, which is NITDA. They register every technology company in Nigeria, and its responsibility includes the regulation, the monitoring, evaluation, and verification of your progress that is made in your sector, and it's usually supervised by the Ministry of Communication. When I move and start talking about the Nigerian Startup Bill, you see how important this agency is. This agency is one of the agencies that, of course, brought out our Nigerian data regulation provisions, right? They are the ones that basically talk about data and, of course, your company. So you cannot not understand what that industry is and how it affects you as a startup or as a tech startup. Super important, right? Super, super important. Now, let's move to the next. Now, the Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission and the Ministry of Interior regulates foreign investors to participate in the business by way of shareholdings. So startups that are interested, that will definitely get in foreign investors, they are meant to register with the Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission, NIPC. You are meant to obtain a business permit from the Ministry of Interior after incorporation and after commencing business. So very, very important that you know this. I've already spoken about the 2 million threshold for small companies. Your ICT levy is 1% of profit. So if you are making about 100 million plus, 1% of your profits must be paid as tax to the ICT sector. Very, very important. I think it's information communication technology tax. There's a tax that's called for it. I'll recall it and I'll remind you. And I would say it there. Then, of course, foreign capital importation. Foreign capital importation. So, like I said, if you are fundraising, which is usually the goal, yes, NITDA tax. If you are fundraising, you cannot run away from these regulators. You cannot. As much as I would have loved you to run, you can't. You have to register them. Yeah. So, like I said, it must be obtained from the central bank. Of course, there is a way to go about it if you go to their registered offices or reach out to a lawyer who basically understands these processes and go and do your business. This is where we work. This is where we work, right? Excuse me. So when you receive grants from international bodies and the funds are provided in foreign currency, these are some of the things that you have to do. You have to have your certificate, you have to have your permits from these organizations so that when you get your money, you can breathe. You're not now running up and down. We won. Oh, we are in the middle of a negotiation. Then you're having to run from one agency to the other to tidy your house. Why don't you prepare the house before the guests come? By guests, I mean your investors, right? So you have your data protection laws, your Nigerian Data Protection Act, your Cyber Crimes Prohibition Prevention Act, which criminalizes data privacy breaches. I am so glad that one of the lawyers that is on this call, and me, I like to blow my lawyer's horn. Ceci Wende was part of the matter, was part of a suit that went to court against a technology debt collection provider that used the data of people that were collecting to start sending unnecessary messages, and they got, Ceci, please, if you can type in the comment box how much penalties were levied by the NITDA agency. If you can write that in the comment box, because it's here. So you see, if you do not obey these laws, you enter long thing, because you will just be collecting penalties without knowing. So it is important that you give proper monitoring to all these laws that regulate your business or your tech or your startup, so that you are able to understand and not get criminalized or get penalized for data breaches or for inability to procure the relevant licenses and certificates, as you can see, right? So what are some compliance? Yes, 10 million, yes. So if you look at my baskets, e.g. Soko loans, they're 10 million. So we lawyers, like, see, if you guys mess up, your clients will come to us and you bet we will sue you. Like, we'll not even waste time. Do you understand? You guys are tech bros, you have money. So it's important for you to guide your company and ensure that you are not, violating many of these laws. So what are some compliance challenges? And I understand that it can be quite significantly stressful. So that is why I go back to my first question. Legal shenanigans, legal service is a painkiller and not a vitamin, because we're helping you solve it, right? Well, you may say 10 million is small, but trust me, it has set a precedent. When you see that these people, of course, they should have paid more, definitely, Maximilian. When you see that there is a lot of breaches going on and nobody is being penalized, then we are living in a rather system, right? So like I said, for example, if you are, I'm pretty sure everybody is registered, because if you are not, you risk losing your brand identity. Imagine having a brand that people already know you for a very long time, and then all of a sudden, because you did not do the needful, somebody else takes that brand identity, starts flights, and then there's a clash. There's so many examples that I can tell you, from Nike to Louis Vuitton to a lot of popular brands, right? You need to protect your brand. So most of the time, if you do not register or your copyright on time, you have a risk of losing your brand, especially as you grow. One thing about the tech space is that you can go from 0 to 100 in months. So you have to be ready. Right? Like I said, also penalties. If you do not file your annual returns, you start losing, and you start being deregistered. You start being, your status now gets inactive on their platform. So when people are searching for your company, investors, they will search. So if they search your company and maybe they go to TSC's portal and they want to write one thing, and they say status inactive, that's red flag already. So it's important that you register, do your annual return. Right? Then also, very, very important, register for your TIN, register with FIRS, and of course, your withholding tax. So there is a principle that withholding tax is collected at the rate of 10% on all profits and dividends paid to investors. If you do not have your tax game good, right, you are going to flaunt this rule because you will not even know. The problem again is that if you do not have a certificate of capital importation, let me slow down. Your certificate of capital importation is so important, because that is what helps the investors that invested in you to collect their money back in the currency they gave it to you. If they don't have it, let me tell you what will happen. Investors will have to pay penalty for collecting their profit from the company at the event of liquidation or maybe exit. So you need to do that. So that is why, if you don't want to give your investors headache and have a bad name, ensure that you get these licenses. So you cannot so those financial benefits and lawsuits, they can sue you because they do not do the needful. And sometimes people lie and say we have all our documents, and the investors give you money, and then problems, right? So it is very, very important that you do that. Because if you don't even register with the NOPTAP, which is National Office for Technology Acquisition and Transfer and all that, your foreigners or your investors can sue you. They can. And the truth is that they will not sue the company as they come. They will sue the company and they will sue you as a director. Because of course you preach Solomon for the lawyers in the room, right? You can lift the company bill. So don't think because you are a company, you cannot be personally liable for some of these things that if you don't do them, you can be sued, right? Then it leads to loss of confidence. Investor pullback and devaluation of your assets and value. You lose value. That is why when you talk about the stock exchange, the public exchange, why do you think stocks drop? Something happens. This happens in the market, and then you realize that the shares of this company drops or devalues. Yes, lifting the veil, yeah. Right, it devalues. Now, Elon Musk bought Twitter. Guys, did you see the valuation on NASDAQ? And of course, the S&P 500. As in, it was green. And you see that because people have invested their shares in this company, they are able to build or increase value. Oh, for those that don't know, NASDAQ is basically the stock exchange for technology-driven companies. That's the NASDAQ. The S&P 500, of course, are for major multinational companies who are listed. So it's like the stock exchange of the UK and the US. So you realize that there was an upward going trend. Let's not even talk about crypto. For those of us here who are, of course, venturing into Web3, those of us who are venturing into the NFT spaces and all that, people need to have confidence in you. The reason why a lot of people run away from investing in different companies is because there's a lot of bubble around it. So if you can prove your mettle and show that, yes, you are structured, you are standard, you can put documents out there, you have all the relevant things, it is very, very critical for you to do that as a company owner, so that you are able to beat your chest and say, yes, I can go in public. And the essence is for you to become a unicorn, isn't it? And so when companies like Flutterwave are now listed on the stock exchange, would you buy? So that's it, right? So it's very, very important for you to consider, because I always talk to business owners and I say this: think with the end in mind, build with the end in mind, structure your organization with the end in mind. What's the end in mind? Depends on your vision for the company. Some people build companies and say, I want this company to reach this amount of valuation, and I sell, I retire, and I go to Fiji to go and live in an island somewhere with my wife and my children. That's some people's vision. Some people's vision is different. So depending on your vision, you must start building the structure for it. Let me not start on this webinar into a preaching session, right? So loss of ability to repatriate capital. It usually affects your investors because they cannot do that, because you don't have these licenses. And of course, clampdowns can lead to financial losses, loss of value, and of course, it can actually lead to the company maybe even shutting down in the short term or the long term. Remember the corporate governance issue that happened with Arthur Andersen and Enron. I'm sure we know that case study, right? Where you had auditors, Arthur Andersen falsifying records of the business so that it could prove valuable in the eyes of investors. You have the situation in the case of the Lehman Brothers, where you basically had them repatriating and buying back underused and overmobilized mortgages. And it led to the crisis that happened in 2018 in the stock market, right? Let's bring it to something that is more recent. Of course, you've heard of what someone should remind me. This lady basically who does a lot of blood testing, and there was just a lot of hidden things as regards the way she was running the company. She was getting a lot of investors, and know that at the end of the day, right now she's currently serving trial. I know her name is Elizabeth Holmes, but if somebody can write the name of the company that is currently under trial, you can write that down. I'm pretty sure we should be keeping up. So you can see a lot of potholes where you have people in your organization that you promised shares. Until today, you've not fulfilled your agreement. I don't need to talk too much. You know the story. Yeah, in quotes. So it's very, very critical that you comply with many of these things so that you are able to ensure that your business is sustainable. Nobody's stressing you, right? All right, so let's go. I'm almost ending. What's the word? We're almost rounding up. I think I'm still halfway through my startup bill, but I'll just be giving you some gist about this Nigerian startup bill. So this is the law I wouldn't say the law of all laws. But before I move to this aspect, is anybody following me so far? Can I see some comments in the comment box? Yes, I'm following. I got it, understood. Let me just see comments. Like I said, I always like to engage my audience. The fact that I can't see your faces doesn't mean that I do not appreciate your responses and your comments. So can I proceed? 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 Right, following. Onitara says following. Ngozi, I celebrate you. We need to talk after now. Kende says yes. Yeah. All right, should we proceed? Should we proceed? Okay, I've gotten a couple of responses and I think I can. I still appreciate it. I see about 40, a lot of persons still on this call. Thank you very much for staying to this end, staying till now. So let's dig into the startup bill. So the Nigerian Startup Bill is a joint initiative by the Nigerian tech ecosystem and the presidency to harness the potential of our economy through co-regulated legislations. The essence of the bill is basically to galvanize all these laws and make it easily adaptable to company processes, allow for innovation, support regulations, tax incentives, getting investors, building clusters, hubs, innovation parks, and we're going to dig in. It's a lot. Right now, the bill is under scrutiny, so there is a particular website that you can go now. You can have a copy of the bill, and you can make your comments on the bill. A lot of people do not know this bill is current. That's why, excuse me, I feel like the Nigerian economy has a lot of work to do when it comes to really pulling in not just the stakeholders that are important, but the bottom stakeholders, you and I, people like us that are in this space. Let me not talk too much. Let's go into the bill. Let's go into the bill because it's a lot. I picked about 15 very major considerations so that you can sit here and know what is coming. Scripture says that a wise man seeth evil afar off, right, and hides. The foolish do what? Go in and are destroyed. So give me a second. Let me hold on. I want to. You can see my screen. So I want to just show you the website live so that you can actually see it. I think it's loading, but while it's doing that, okay, I think it's just hold on. Okay. Where is my network? I'll switch back. Don't worry, I'll switch back so that we don't waste time. I think it's when it loads, I'll show it to you. Okay, so the Nigerian Startup Bill. Now, the very first thing that gripped my attention in that bill was the fact that, oh my God, I'm 1 hour, 18 minutes. Okay, I'll try to round up, right? But like we're seeing a lot on this call, so it shows that I'm not spilling beans. Okay, so the first thing that caught my attention, and I'm reviewing this bill as a lawyer and also as a startup person. You are required to be registered as a startup under the Nigerian Startup Bill if you have been in existence for a period of not more than 10 years. So if you're a startup between 0 to 10, you are qualified as a startup to be ready to be. So the law affects you, 10 and below. Then if you are considered to be a startup if your objects are around innovation, development, production, commercialization of an innovative product or a process. Also, you are a startup if your headquarters in Nigeria, your board of directors are Nigerian, and the Nigerians have minimum 51% of its shares owned by one or more Nigerians. Like so in fact, without even talking too much, this is the startup, this is the bill. So this is it on my screen. Like I said, it has not yet been brought into law, but it's a draft, but it's good to look at it so that we can have comments on it. So I don't know if you can see my screen. So you can see, so this part, I'll just take you directly to the section that talks about I hope you can hear me. Please confirm if you can hear me because I think my Wi-Fi just switched. Please confirm you can hear me, please. Confirm if you can hear me. I need to be sure that what you are seeing on my screen is what is showing. I observed that my screen had logged out. Thank you. Thank you. All right, awesome. Just give me a second. I'm sharing my screen again. Sweet. Okay, so my laptop swapped my Wi-Fi. in Nigeria, you need to have backup. Okay, so look at it. There are so many parts of this bill, but very, very important for you to see whether you qualify as a startup or not. So I think it's this particular section. So it basically talks about the fact that startups are meant to be registered and they are meant to have a particular threshold. So you must be minimum 10 years, at least maximum rather, 10 years in operations. And of course, you must be in the innovation space. And of course, definitely, it is very, very critical and important for you to be able to have that 51% shares owned by one or more Nigerians. You have less than 100 direct employees, excluding casual workers. And of course, you have at least 15% of your expenses attributed to research and development. So this is what, if you fulfill all these things, in the eye of this bill, you are a startup, right? Let's go to my slide. Then, of course, I've already mentioned this. The object of your startup, of course, must be such to develop an innovative product, a technological process, and others. Pardon the typo. The secretariat, so the governing body or the organs that will be responsible for ensuring that this bill is enforced is the council. So there is a council, there's a technical committee, and there's a secretariat. The council is made up of the president, the vice president, there are about almost 26. There will be 2 startup represented that will be part of the council. There will be 2 civil organizations, civil body organizations represented. You have representatives of CAC, representatives of CBN, representatives of NAFDAC, representatives of NITDA, representatives of NIMC. Just think of any organization that governs the startup ecosystem. You have the representatives in that council. But the secretariat of that council is the NITDA. Do you not see why you need to start becoming friends with that body? Do you understand? So the secretariat does a lot in terms of registering the startups, ensuring that there is feasibility studies being carried out. The startups must prove viability, and there must be a statement of innovation that the problems being tackled are such that have been consistently solved. So there is more or less like a check and balance system, right? Then also there's due diligence checks on the credit worthiness of your startup. So if you can assess funding based on your traction, due diligence reports will be submitted. So these are things to look out for, because these are the things that will be required. Another major thing, I think it's section 13 or 14. I don't want to show us too many legalese, that's why I'll stick to my slides, is that there is something that's going to be established as a one-stop shop center for the registration of startups to facilitate the issuance of permits. So permits from SEC and all that, everything can be done on a portal. Just like you have CAC, you can apply for business registration, NGO, and limited. That's how you're going to have a one-stop shop center. And I think it's a good move, because you are going to have a unification of all these regulations, and it will be easy for you to access. So if you want to obtain a license from CBN, go to the one-stop centers, the one-stop shop center portal, and access it there and all that. So it's going to be easy. It's like you have everything in one place. So that's the beautiful thing about the website, and it's going to be created. Then of course, there's going to be ease of technology transfer. Remember I said earlier that if you're going to have a certificate of capital importation, you have to do this and this and this and this. Under this new law, everything can be done via that website. And of course, there's a separate section that can help you with the help desk. So it's just really like a very easy way to get these things done. Then there are incentives, and I brought out the one that really made very good sense. If you are registered as a startup under the bill, you are only going to be paying value-added tax of 3%, not 7.5%, under the new bill. And then you have a profit-free tax period of 7 years. So for 7 years, you're going to be chilling, which is, I don't know, I think it's okay. But government, when they offer you incentive, it is based on some incentive, based on some thresholds. But it's a good thing to look out for, because it's one of the things that they are offering. So you can start telling your friends, this new bill, this is what they are saying, it will make sense. So you can also look through the bill for yourself and see how it looks like. Then of course, you have incentives released for investors and startups. So when you have angel investors, venture capitalists, and they make investments, do you know what they said? They said any profits that they make from selling their investment in your startup will be exempted from capital gains tax. Like, wow. I was like, when I was reading, I was like, it's just not too good to be true, because I'm like, are you guys just trying to patronize us or something? But like I said, the bill is still being reviewed, so I think it's a good one. If you have, yeah, it is so good. If you have eligible employees in a registered startup, they'll be entitled to income tax credit of 35% for a period of 2 years from the date of registration of the startup. So if you register a startup on this date and maybe you have an employee, they'll be entitled to personal income tax credit of 35%. So it's really, really good, especially it can help you with having to not have the stress of doing your PAYE remittances and all that. Then of course you have tax incentives for external providers, right? You have for example, non-resident consulting companies, right? Non-resident companies, they provide technical consulting and professional services and all that. So they'll be entitled to tax exemptions under the bill, right? Then repatriation benefits. Remember, I was threatening you guys, and I'll say, if you don't get your certificate, your foreigners or your investors will not be able to get their money back, blah, 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 blah. But do you know what this bill now says? It says that you will be guaranteed unconditional repatriation through authorized dealers. So if you're able to, do the needful and register and get all these licenses and all that, your foreign investors are assured that they can get their monies out. And I think it's really good for companies that are trying to grow. Then, of course, consideration for public procurement. So for those of us that are in public procurement agencies, you do a lot of contracting with governments, with agencies, with the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Finance, and you basically have relationships with them. What this bill is saying is that startups will be considered first before other established companies. So they're going to give, it's like what do they call it? Sharing formula. I'm trying to remember, there's a word, quota. Yes, there will be a quota for startups to be able to have access to these ministries, development, and these agencies, and they'll be giving first consideration basis. Then, of course, you have talent development. The act has stated that there will be technology zones, so like you have free trade zones. For those of us that have heard about Talent City or something like that, the government is trying to do their own and said that there will be established zones in different parts of Nigeria where you are going to have trainings, incubator hubs, accelerators. You're going to have a lot of partnerships with foreign investors and all that. They intend to establish those hubs, and also they intend to introduce courses in universities that teach entrepreneurship, business, startup, fundraising, and all that, from polytechnics to universities. So those are some of the things that the bill is trying to do. And I think it's a novel idea, right? So these are just like few of the considerations of the Nigerian Startup Bill. And I think one of the things that we need to understand is that we have the right to actually give our own suggestions. So yes, the site is www, so put it down, nigeriastartupbill.com. So you have the overview, you have the timelines. This is about the startup bill. As you can see, I mostly called out what I got here from the, so this is your president's speech. Yeah. Then of course, this is the timeline of the bill. The bill was produced in June. Let me annotate so that you can see my screen. Let me use a mouse. Good. So this is when it started. The first draft was produced in June 2021. Then July it was validated. Then town hall meetings in August 2021. Maximilian, hello. So moving on. Final draft was produced in September 2021, and then the bill was submitted to the president in October 2021. So for the lawyers in the midst, of course, you know the stages of a bill becoming law. Goes through all these readings: first reading, second reading, third reading, and then different stakeholders talk about it, blah, 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 and then the assent is the last stage. So until that bill is assented, it's not law. So it's good for you to at least know, right? And then on the website, you can see the summary of the bill. You can review the bill you can see it on the right, so you can actually have access to it by yourself. Right, I'm sure you can see my screen. So everything I've said there is typically that it's just 24 pages. You can read that thing in, let's say, if you're a very, very lazy reader, 1 day or 2 days, right? I think I read it in like hours because I had to prepare for this. So basically, that's what this bill is about, and it's really a lot. It's very, very important for us to follow up and put in our suggestions, because there's an opportunity for you to make your own contributions as a tech startup. All right. So so let me just round off here. What's my conclusion? Number one, guys, like, I know you're the billionaires of the future, like the Tesla's and the Dangotes, which we are. No kidding. Please be aware. There's information everywhere. Not everybody's willing to pay the price to get that information. Please be aware. Be aware of the regulatory landscape of a business. Don't be afraid. Get legal services. Proactivity. Get a legal advisor. And it should be seen. I think this thing about legal services is a mindset thing. Think of it as a necessary need, not an unnecessary expense. I think that's the mindset you need to have. Getting a legal advisor should be considered as a necessary business cost and not an unnecessary expense. Many digital solutions exist. And it's because of you can tell that doing this, I can close my eyes at night. Like, you can wake up in the middle of the night and I can talk about these things back and forth, back to back, because it's something that I'm very, very passionate about. Because every single business owner I talk to, they have this issue of this lawyer thing. And that is why our company just wants to democratize this process and make it easy to get access to all these services by just tapping your phone. Really. The third thing is take advantage of concessions. It's important to know the incentives allowable by law and make good use of them as a startup. A lot of people, they already get to the point where they expand before they realize that, we should have taken advantage of this tax credit and all that. So get good advice, get good recommendations, make sure that you're working with a team that knows what they are doing, and ensure that you onboard legal advice from even the ideation stage, because we do not want cancers. We want healthy companies. We want healthy companies. So with that, I want to say thank you for having me on this. I want to say that it's a privilege to speak at this amazing session. Thank you, SIAO, for having me. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. So thank you so much, guys. And I think I'll end here. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. I see some questions. Okay, I've just seen a question. Okay, so before I officially round up or hand over to you, let me just answer the question straight up. Conflict of laws is the bane of business growth in Nigeria. Okay, I think that was a comment. So, well, conflict, sort of, but I wouldn't necessarily say conflict. I would say overregulation. So you have a lot of regulators, and these regulators are spread far apart. So I think one of the things that the government is trying to do right now is to pull in all these regulations together. But it's important for you to actually like follow up, keep tabs with them. How enforceable are all these NDAs vis-a-vis the rate of technological development and email transfer? Good, extremely good question. Now, they are enforceable. There are organizations, there are court systems that allow, but that's why the contract itself must exist. Because if there is a breach and there was no agreement of some sort, yes, of course, there are oral agreement, there are expectations, but it's easier for you to be able to enforce your rights when that person agreed to enforce that right of yours. So the fact that there may be challenges in the judicial system where you have cases spanning for a long time, or you have arbitral processes that are really, really not as effective, doesn't mean that you shouldn't have those documents. The essence is for you to just be battle ready, right? I think that's that. That's for the second question. Then once the bill is signed into law, will the provisions of the bill apply to existing companies which is less than 5 years, or is it just for new companies incorporated under bill? See, you see this question. I need to give you a bottle of juice, because honestly, that was the first question, and that was one of the major concerns I raised about the bill, because I'm like, now you're telling us that we have to register. So what of startups that don't register? One, what of startups that have passed that threshold but are still in the context of valuation, still startups? Or what exactly is there a penalty, first of all? Like, what exactly are we going to do? So if we don't register, what happens? If we say we don't want, so are you making it compulsory? Is the bill going to be retroactive? It has to be specifically stated there. So I want to check. There is nothing in the bill right now that states its retroactivity. And I think that is because it hasn't gotten to the stage of assent where you are going to have all those discussions being made. So I think it's something that we should just watch out for and look out for in case maybe that may be the position. So I think that's all the questions I've seen in the Q&A section. My question was, after getting your team, what other business do you have with FIRS for pre-seed state? See, it's not even about pre-seed. You always have businesses with FIRS, especially when it comes to remitting your VAT. And I didn't really go so deep because I had a lot to talk about. Your value-added taxes must be remitted monthly, and it must be remitted 21st day of every month after the month preceding the transaction. So, for example, this is the 29th of April. On the 21st of May, you must remit all the value-added taxes for March by remittance. Don't forget, if your earnings is 25 million and below, you're not going to FIRS to go and pay them money. It's like, I really wish I had a VAT form. Okay, maybe I'll show you on the screen if I have the opportunity. You are meant to just file, okay, in March, this was the amount of revenue that came in. This is the amount of revenue that came out. This is the amount to charge the VAT. Take it to FIRS, they will stamp, go and be going. Right? So remittance is not the same as filing. Please get that distinct. On Twitter, I rant a lot about this. I'm always talking about this whole tax thing, right? So you have a lot of businesses with FIRS, the business of filing your VAT. As you begin to grow and start paying different kinds of taxes, they will come for you. There's no way they will come. So keep a good relationship with them. I'll have a lawyer who has a very good relationship with them. I do. To keep monitoring tabs, and of course, build a rapport with them so that they can always advise you based on what you have, and they can give you necessary advice as you grow and as you go from your pre-seed to your Series A, Series B, Series C funding, and of course your unicorn stage, which I am routinely voting for you guys to actually get to. So with that, thank you very much, guys. I'm super grateful. Thank you. I've spent 1 hour 37 minutes of your time. It's not a waste. I still see that 43 people are on this call, and I'm super grateful. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. My contacts are on my screen. Twitter, Rosemont Phil. Instagram, Rosemont Phil. You can always get me there. And of course, if you want my personal message, you can WhatsApp me. That's my WhatsApp number. We can just let's talk, and I'm excited to working with you if I have the opportunity to. So thank you very much, and thanks for having me. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Rosemont. That was a very, very impactful and insightful session, I must say. Like, if you were not into tech, I'm sure right now you'll be gingering to enter the tech space, knowing what you know now. So that we don't leave you unsatisfied. If you have any comments, any unclear observations, anything you want to say, you want to ask Rosemont, you can still ask her now before she runs and leaves us alone. But thank you, Rosemont. For those asking about the video and the slides, they will be shared they will be shared to your emails, the emails you registered with. We will share them and the slides with you. So Rosemont's details were on the screen, so you can reach her via her details she puts there on her social media pages and her website. So you can also reach us on our own websites, which will be in the chat box. You can reach us for, like I said, we're a business advisory firm, and we offer ranges of services from finance, tax to compliance and human resource, so you can reach us there too. And we offer learning and development services as well. This is part of what we do, so we hold trainings from time to time, and we hope to have a further training into this subject matter with, like Rosemond earlier mentioned, which would also be shared when it's out on our social media pages and our website as well. Also, if you would also like to be part of our mailing list so that you can have access to our training information ahead of time to schedule your time, I would also I would also be putting that in the chat box for you. So please, it is necessary that we all stay compliant so that we don't run foul with the law, because, like I said earlier, it's prevention. My people say prevention it's better than cure. So let's do the right thing. Let's get it right, and let's avoid situations that we don't want to be mentioned that have happened in the past or that are currently happening. So if there are no more questions, I'm sure we can release Ms. Rosemont to go. We would be would also be so when you join our mailing list, we can then share with you our future trainings, which you can also sign up for as it comes. So I'm guessing all questions have been answered and all observations have been cleared. So Rosemond, I really, really enjoyed our session this morning. It was the coffee. It was the coffee that I think most entrepreneurs and most lawyers needed. So you served it hot, and I'm sure they have an after feel of it. So so thank you guys for coming with us. Have a fantastic Friday and enjoy the holidays ahead. And then we look forward to having more sessions with you, Rosemond, and we look forward to having more sessions with you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rosemond. Bye.